Right, I think it's about time now the Turnarcades Dual-Core system has been offered for a while, that it was fully updated and brought to a kind of state where I can finally tell you, the customers, exactly where it stands and exactly what the revisions are for now. As people will know, the dual-core system is significantly higher spec than our standard P4 system, which we've been using now for the last 3 years successfully. Although that system's perfect for the majority of gamers running arcade games, 8, 16 and even a couple of 32-bit consoles successfully, it's not quite powerful enough to meet the demands of some of our younger customers, and we're now getting requests for much more advanced systems and games on there. Because especially with the younger people or people who are more fans of modern gaming, you'll know that the system demands of 3D generated games is a lot higher than it would be for your classic raster images. So what we've done is we introduced the dual core spec a couple of months ago, mainly for the introduction of Super Street Fighter 4. We first debuted the system on a machine we built at last year's Replay Expo, but as there'll be no showcase this year, I've decided to do a video on here just to let people know what kind of developments Turnarcades have been making and to show you how far our systems have come in the last couple of years. So the dual core system is a Core 2 Duo, small form factor desktop PC in the same motherboard line as the P4 systems we use. It's been extensively benchmarked now to get the best performance out of, and everybody who knows our systems knows that we will do what we can to get the best performance we can from the lowest system we can to bring best value for money to our customers. So we've persevered for it for about 12 months now, and it's at a state we're happy with. A couple of people have had the dual core system so far, but we wanted to add a few more things, and I'm now going to show you exactly what those are and give you some performance tests on here. So the first thing we've added, if I go around, is we've updated should I say, the MAME core to version 0.143, which is not the latest but is a very recent build of MAME, and it does include some additions and support for things like Laserdisc games, which I know a lot of people want to do through MAME. We can already play Laserdisc through the use of the Daphne emulator, which we include on our P4 systems, but the scope is there now for people with the way the initialization files are written to upgrade their own builds of MAME on here further. But there are some key additions. Mainly this was a big one everyone's asking for, and that was Street Fighter 3. So we're just going to quickly fire that up and show you how well that performs. Now I've turned the volume down on this system just so you can hear me talking over it. But you should still be able to hear the music, so if there's any errors or things like that, and hopefully the quality of the video on my iPhone should be sufficient to show you just how well the system performs. As you can see, that game is running just fine there. So there is Street Fighter 3. Bear in mind I'm playing all these games with a keyboard, so my gameplay won't be very good, but it just shows you that the control responsiveness is right there. So if we move along, going through our old P4 spec, you'll see that we've got the classic Sega, Nintendo and Atari consoles from back in the day all on there. So we've got the 16-bit SNES, Mega Drive, then we've got the 8-bit NES and the 8-bit Master System, the handheld Game Boy and Game Boy Color, handheld Game Gear, and we've got Neo Geo Pocket. And you'll see for some of the platforms we've also, not only have we got snapshots of the games, we've also got video previews running. That's quite handy. You can of course upgrade and add your own if there's any there that aren't there for you. Then we've got the PC Engine, otherwise known as the TurboGrafx 16. Then we've got some of the older systems. We've got the Atari 2600. Most people should remember that as one of the earliest consoles. The handheld Atari Lynx, not a successful system, but still some great games on there. I mean, as you can see running there, there's a brilliant port of the arcade game Rygar. Then moving into slightly newer territory, the Sega Mega Drive add-ons, the 32X and the Mega CD, and the games on there both run fine. The FMV, the CD quality sound and everything all run great, and the early handling of polygon graphics. Then moving into the slightly newer era, we've got the Nintendo 64. As everyone will know, this is the 5th generation of consoles. The Nintendo 64 performance. There are already other videos on here showing you how well the Nintendo 64 performs, even on our Pentium 4 spec. So on our dual-core spec there are no problems whatsoever. And in the same 5th generation there, we've also got PlayStation 1. The games on there again run brilliantly, and that is an excellent addition because even on the P4s, where 3D fighters aren't emulated as well as perhaps they could be, many of the ports of that era were actually put over onto the PlayStation. So things like Soul Blade and Tekken, Rival Schools, Toshinden, all of those are there and fully playable on PlayStation. Then we've also got the later handheld, the Gameboy Advance. That runs excellent. There's some brilliant games on there that play well with the arcade controls. And as I mentioned before, we've got Laserdisc. I don't think I've actually done a video preview of these, so I might as well quickly boot this up. This is about the limit of what our Pentium 4s are capable of, so I'll just quickly boot this up. You don't have to have a dual core spec to have this, like I say. The Pentium 4s will run it just fine. And when it starts to load up, there we go, going through the startup cycle. And kicks into the main game. There you go, you can see the wonderful Don Bluth animation of Dragon's Lair, games like Space Ace, all the other Laserdisc games that use the same style of gameplay, running just brilliantly there. If you've never played these games before, they are good to give a try. If you do have a dual core spec, all of these platforms will already be installed, and then as we move into the dual core spec, we start to move into the more advanced platforms. We've got the Atari Jaguar. Now the Atari Jaguar was Atari's last effort at competing in the console market and bragged as a 64-bit system, but it was a little bit too much ahead of its time and people debated about its true power. But as you can see there, we've got the excellent port of Doom there, and you can see the speed that's running at. One of the best home ports of Doom from the PC. Shame it didn't have any music, but as you can see, it runs just fine and it plays extremely well. A little bit of a hang there because I'm still working on the system, but that's exited just fine. On there we've got some other fantastic games. I mean, like I say, start to look at 3D games there. We've got Checkered Flag, Alien vs Predator, the excellent Tempest 2000, which I always rave about. And then we start moving back into the 5th generation of gaming again. We've got the Sega Saturn. Now, even though technically not quite as powerful as the PlayStation, the Saturn emulation is a lot more tricky to do, and there aren't very many. There's only a couple of decent emulators out there for it, and we've now got that running on here just fine. It's a tricky thing to set up with the front end, but we have now got it set up. We had it set up originally, but you couldn't play 2-player because of a workaround we'd done with the controls. but we've now ironed out that problem we had. There's no workaround anymore, and this will play fine 2-player, and even people with 4-player control panels on our machines can have this in 2-player mode. Fantastic shooter if you're into your shooting games. Some people might have played the later sequels to it, such as Ikaruga, or some of the arcade versions of this. An extremely rare game on the Sega Saturn. If you manage to find one available on eBay or in the shops, you'll be looking to pay close to £200 for this game. So to be able to play it in an arcade system with arcade controls, not only a rare treat, but also a rare thing for any retro collector, because being able to play this game in its native system will be very difficult to do now. So, again, good games on there. We've got things like Panzer Dragoon, The Excellent Knights, we've got Sega Rally, Daytona, the early ports of those, but Radiant Silvergun, certainly one of the better games. Now, as we're getting more advanced, we've been looking at certainly less well emulated systems, and moving into the 6th generation of consoles. Now, the 6th generation is very complex to emulate, even on the newest PCs. So, with the optimizations we've made, and with some of the modifications we've made, you can now actually play Dreamcast on these systems, and we will be testing a couple more, namely PlayStation 2 and Xbox, but more on that in a couple of minutes. Now, on Dreamcast we've got some fantastic games. You've got better ports of Daytona, you've got more advanced fighters, and I'm going to quickly boot up Soul Calibur here. A fighting game a lot of people will remember. The sequel ports on GameCube, PlayStation and Xbox, everyone will certainly remember. But as you can see, this system now boots just fine on our systems. And we'll fire up a game and show you how well it performs. Oh, for people wondering as well, people are asking how well you can actually play these without memory cards and things like that. Well, the emulation of the system includes emulation of the VMUs in this case, but the memory cards of other platforms. So on most games you should be able to save and load your games in exactly the same way as you used to, without the need to even switch emulation of a memory card. It will just store them all into a file folder on the computer. You can even download save games to open up characters and things like that if you wanted to. Let's get a game going here. As you can see, the higher definition graphics there coming through very nicely. See, moving the camera around there, 3-dimensional graphics scrolling just fine. Let's have another quick round. As you can see, that runs just fine. Now, a lot of people asking about Dreamcast, so I'm quickly going to show another game on there. Let's have a think about what to show. Might as well do that. Another excellent arcade favourite, Crazy Taxi. So you can see now with the Turnarcades machines we've well and truly moved into the 21st century with these consoles. Obviously the Dreamcast released at the very back end of 1999 and well, at least finding popularity that year and lasting into the 2000s when the rest of the 6th generation consoles were released. We'll see if we can quickly get a game going on here.
It's party time! Let's have some fun ride! Let's go make some crazy money! Go ahead and pick a car driver! Gus! Okay, let's have some
My
fun.
favourite driver on this.
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go! Come over here! Okay, then pay me later.
Familiar Offspring soundtrack there, getting you pumped up. And there is Crazy Taxi. So, moving on, we've also there got the rarer Nintendo handheld / tabletop system, the Virtual Boy. Now this system has been set up to display in an integrated way that will make it acceptable for viewing in 2 dimensions, but you can actually play around with the settings and you may just be able to make out on this video a blue and red mix. And what that means is if you've got like standard 3D glasses, you know, like the red and blue 3D glasses, the blue and yellow, or even the rarer red and green, you can actually view this system in full 3D. There we go. This game very much like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out but with robots. Quite a good game once you get into it. You can see that running there with no problems at all. Now that would have been as far as we go, and we have also got one other system which isn't quite ready yet, but we're very excited about it because this is moving into the very latest arcade scene. The Taito Type X arcade platform is actually a PC based derivative in the arcades, which has now been made to work on standard desktop PCs. So it's not actually true emulation, it is actually the true games. However, at the moment we're having trouble tying this into the front end, but the type of games available on here, I mean, you've got the original arcade ports of Street Fighter 4 and Super Street Fighter 4, as well as things like King of Fighters 12 and 13, which a lot of fighting games will be very excited about. But until we get that tied in, that system won't be accessible from the front end. The skin is ready, the games on there are ready, but until we tie in the initialization files with the front end, it won't be playable from the front end. But it is possible to go back to the desktop and play these. I'll quickly give a demo of that shortly, but we can't play it on here. But what I've recently been looking at as well is now we've got the dual-core spec sorted out. I've also been looking at going one further. Now emulation of 7th generation has even begun with the production of the Dolphin emulator. Now the Dolphin emulator was originally a GameCube emulator, which they went one step further when they discovered that the Wii is only really an exaggerated GameCube hardware. So it is possible to emulate Wii with a very fast PC. Now, looking at it, we don't want to go that far because obviously to get the most out of the Wii games, well, the majority of them, you would need the Wii remotes and that. Now you can hook those up, but for the sake of arcade play, pretty much after the 5th generation, games started to be more immersive, free-roaming games with the need for analog control and things like that. But that's not to say there weren't some excellent games that would very much find their home in an arcade because they were derived from the arcade scene and the early days of pick up and play gaming. So playing around with the emulator, I will eventually move this on, and this will be looking at the when we start looking at quad core systems for those who really want top end power out of their machines. But what I started experimenting with was GameCube, and what I've discovered is even on our dual spec system we have got very, very good GameCube emulation. Now you supposedly need at least dual core spec to even get these running at all. Now with some of our optimizations we've got many games on here running at pretty much 95% speed with very little glitches, even on our quite modest dual core spec. Now not all games work, there are some compatibility issues with the emulator anyway, so only certain regions of certain games will work. It's to do with the fact that once you get to the 6th generation, consoles are being created more like PCs with certain dedicated graphics cores that are complex to emulate, certain dedicated sound and certain engines in there that would, very much a lot of trickery to get them to perform effects that beat out their rivals. So to be able to emulate them at all is a bonus. Now we've got GameCube emulated very, very well, and to prove that I'm quickly going to boot up quite a fast game, very much like F-Zero or Wipeout, a game called Tube Slider on the GameCube. We've got this already all tied into the front end. We wouldn't like to put this onto people's systems just yet because it's not as perfect as we like, but we're just very proud of the fact that we've been able to get this and integrate it all at this point before we even start looking at the quad cores after Christmas. Now this PC that's been done for one of our customers, Robert, has been very much used as a guinea pig for elaborating on the dual core spec, so I will be leaving this system on there for him as kind of a reward for allowing us to take a bit more time over his system and get this spec up. And so here it is, GameCube on the Turnarcades Dual-Core system. And as you can see, the system is loading up. You can see how fast the graphics are processing there. The lower frame rate of this camera doesn't do it justice, but it is running just perfect. And as we get into a game, you should be able to more highly appreciate that. Let's pick a ship. We'll go with that one. Now, as you can see the game loading, you can see just how well this more advanced 3D graphics is being handled by the system. And as we start the race, you'll see the speed that these games move at. You can hardly hear the music because I've got the actual sound effects balance up a bit higher, but you can see the pace the game is running at. Controlling all this just fine with the joypad. I mean, granted this is supposed to be played with analog controls, but you can see I'm managing just fine, and I'm sitting in first place just playing it on a keyboard. With arcade controls it should even be easier than this. So those doubters who've said, oh, you just can't play analog control games with arcade controls should take good note of this, because I'm sure a lot of people will get enjoyment out of playing these games on their arcade systems, and I'm demonstrating here just how well they perform and how well they can be played. Build up some speed back on the ground. There we go. As you can see, that is running just fine. So, how do other games run, you're probably asking? Well, we'll come out of that and we'll take a look at another couple of games here. Now, Super Smash Brothers, a very popular fighting game. Brawl on the Wii was certainly a very popular game, and this is the precursor to it. Very good graphics, very good gameplay, and we'll just quickly see if we can get a game going on this. You can see at the top there that it's updating the memory card as we go along on this, as it does on many more advanced systems. Might as well get with Mario. It's his game pretty much. Now, not as perfect as you saw there, was a little glitch there, but the game is playing. Certainly playable. I'm fighting just fine. I'm using the controls just fine. Got no problems handling it. I've no idea what the controls are supposed to be for this game because I'm not a big fan of it myself, but you can see it there running just fine. So let's see, what else can we take a look at? Right, pushing the system. I'm not going to kid you, it is pushing the system quite a lot, and if we go into Resident Evil 4 you would see that the game runs probably about half speed on that, but it's left in there for now as a placeholder. The game does run, and as soon as we get the quad-core spec running, that game should run flawlessly. I'm just trying to see if there's any more games. Oh, there we go. The excellent Mario Kart Double Dash. Now this is actually my favourite Mario Kart to date. I love the way you use 2 races in every game, in every race. Now this game again, probably running at about 85-90% speed. The menus and everything all at 100% speed. But no major graphical glitches, no major sound problems. And there we go. Let's get a game fired up. But we'll go back. And we'll go faster speed. And let's go with the baddies. Start up on the basic cup so you can see. A little bit of slowdown on the sound there, but it's nothing too drastic. You can see all the shading effects and everything are there. As you can see, the game is being controlled just fine, being played just fine. And they're special there, dragging us along just fine. What a brilliant game. Taking me well up to 3rd place there. Stole my item. Eat red shell. And obviously the game not so difficult to play if I can get up to 2nd place in just one lap using the keyboard. But there we go. So that is 6th generation gaming there on the Turnarcades systems. Now, like I say, it's not perfect, I'm not going to lie. There are some games there that won't run well just yet, and compatibility of the emulator is slightly lower than it would be for other systems, but that is just common of all games going into this era. But it does now mean we can open the door to look at PlayStation 2, Xbox emulation, and when we eventually get round to doing the quad core, those platforms should all run very, very well indeed. We'll probably be looking at about 80% compatibility and probably about 95% speed once we've made the optimizations we need to. Finally, just before I sign off, I will show you Taito Type X running. Although we can't play it, we can certainly have a quick look at one of them. and fighting game fanatics. I'm sure some of the guys at the Shoryuken forums and the guys from Electronic Dojo and things like that will be very interested to see these, because they will be fully aware of the more modern arcade fighting games. As we go into this era, we're looking at higher resolution graphics, we're looking at much faster gameplay and visual effects, and obviously a lot more depth to fighting games than we used to see. Obviously everyone's aware of Street Fighter 4, but games like this, King of Fighters 12 and 13, are just fantastic too. Now this is BlazBlue Calamity Trigger. Just an absolutely stunning game, as you can see. So there it is. That is the Turnarcades Dual-Core spec as of September 2012. Customers ordering this system in their machines from this point on have obviously got a lot to look forward to, and it proves that we are evolving with the times. No other arcade producer is putting out this level of commitment to their software, and none of the others have got this level of experience to be able to squeeze so much from slightly lower spec systems. Those arcade producers who are boasting about performance specs and ridiculously powered water-cooled systems and things obviously haven't got their heads screwed on, because it shows that with the right dedication and the right amount of time put into it, instead of just rushing things out and slapping a four-figure price tag on things, if you persevere, you can certainly have something very special. And I hope everyone can see just how dedicated we are to our systems. The Turnarcades systems of the future will certainly look very special with software like this on. Signing off now. It's been a very long video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it and get a better feel for exactly where we're up to now with our PC installations, and to show you the versatility of our systems. We welcome any comments or suggestions, and we certainly hope you put at least one post on here, even if it's just a thumbs up to say you're loving what we do. See ya.